The first trick you'll see as you try to graph different lines is what to do if you don't have a fraction for your slope. Remember, when you talk about slope, you always think of it as rise over run. Well, there's no over on this problem, so we can't quite do it yet. What we have to do is we have to make that a fraction. And anytime you want to turn a whole number into a fraction, you make it over 1. Negative 2 is the same as negative 2 entire things. Negative 2 over 1. So now let's graph this. My y-intercept, my first point, is plus 1. From the very, very middle, I go up 1, put the first point. My slope is negative 2 over 1. From here I'm going to go down 2 and right 1. Put the second point, connect in a line, and that is our answer. That is how you graph y equals negative 2x plus 1. Alright, now what do you do when there's not anything next to the x? Well, if there's nothing next to the x, that means how many x's are there? There is exactly 1x. You can always turn x just into 1x. And then once you have 1x, that's not a fraction. So what do you do with a slope that's not a fraction? Well, as we learned on the last problem, you make it a fraction. You put it over 1. So now we have a slope of 1 over 1 and a y-intercept of negative 4. So to draw this, to get our first point, we're going to go down 4 from the origin and put our first point there. And our slope's 1 over 1, so from this point we're going to go up 1 and right 1. And that is the graph of y equals x minus 4. Y equals 3/4 x. This line doesn't have a b. Remember, you usually write that as y equals mx plus b. This line doesn't have a plus anything at the end. So if it has nothing being added to it, that's the same as having plus 0. When you have something empty, no plus b, your b is 0 then. So from the very, very middle, we move up by 0, so we just stay right there. And our first point is at the origin at 0, 0. Then from that point, our slope is 3/4. We're going to rise 3, run 4, and we get that line like that. Whenever you don't have a b, when you just have y equals something like that, you just put your own plus 0 at the end. Here, our b is a fraction. So far, b has always been whole numbers, but when it's a fraction, you really treat it about the same way. You might want to plug it into a calculator and figure out 5/3. That's about 1.67. That's somewhere between 1 and 2. So if you're b, as always from the origin, you just go up or down by that amount. So we're going to go up by 5/3. That'll land us somewhere between 1 and 2. Right about there. And then from that point, we do the same thing as usual. We go up 1 and over 3. Now when you go up 1, if you started between tick marks, you're still going to be between tick marks when you go up 1. And you go to the right 3. And then we have a line through those points. And that is how you graph it when b is a fraction. You do about the same thing if it was a decimal. You just put it between the tick marks. Now this line, we don't have y by itself. In order to graph a line, you want to have y by itself so that you've got it in that slope-intercept form. Here your y is not by itself, so what do? Well, you've got to use algebra to get y by itself. So to get y by itself, first I'm going to move this 2x over. To get rid of a positive 2x, you subtract 2x on both sides. 2x and minus 2x cancels. 3y comes straight down. Now remember, 6 and minus 2x, those are not like terms. These are x's, these are not x's. You can't combine them together. That's not 4 or 4x. It's minus 2x and then a positive 6 after it. And now you've got 3y. How to get y by itself? You have to get rid of the 3. To get rid of a times 3, you divide by 3. Remember, when you divide, you do that to every single term. 3y over 3 is just y. Negative 2x over 3 That fraction will stay there. 6 over 3, that divides to be 2. And now this looks a lot like all the other ones we've been graphing. Plus 2 means you go up 2 from the center to get your first point. Minus 2/3 means you then go down 2 and to the right 3 to get the second point. And that is that line. This will come up a lot when you graph lines. They give you a couple easy ones with y by itself, and then you do a lot of these problems where you have to do the algebra taking y by itself and then go ahead and graph them. So you'll see a lot of problems like this. Y equals -2. This line has no x at all. And you got to remember that is a special line if you don't have both letters. When you have no x, that means you have a flat horizontal line. If y is -2, you just go to y is -2 and make a flat horizontal line. Anytime there's no x, you just get a flat horizontal line like that. And just FYI, that has 0 slope. If they ask about the slope, you would say, oh, that's a 0 slope when you have the horizontal line. On the other hand, what if there's no y at all? What if they want you to graph x equals 3? Well, remember, when there was no x, it was a horizontal line. When there's no y, that is a vertical line going straight up and down. So to graph that, when there's no y, that's the only time you'll go to the left or the right to start. For x equals 3, I go to the right to where x is 3, make my line through there. This line has a lot of points on it where x is 3. It's got the point 3, 0, it's got the point 3, 1, really 3 comma anything. That's why it's a line x equals 3. And when you have a straight up and down line, you probably will want to know for some questions that that has undefined slope. And these are the two special lines you've got to know about. When there's no x, you've got a horizontal line with 0 slope. When there's no y, you've got a vertical line with undefined slope.